We're talking check rides in the hangar.
I used to be a well-respected member of the aviation community, and then I started flying to Cirrus, and that changed.
Oh, that was great until the engine quit.
And all of a sudden I see these explosions and these trees exploding.
I'm walking away a better pilot because of this discussion.
Hi, welcome to In the Hangar. We have a great show today. We're going to be talking about check rides, and we're going to be talking with a designated pilot examiner. Joe Casey, thanks for coming back to the show and being on with us.
Always my pleasure. Thanks for having me here.
And Christy Wong, you're here to help me do this.
I am here.
We've had you on before, and we've talked about check rides, and we've talked specifically about, what are some things to avoid, what are some things to do. Before we get into all that, let's talk about where the FAA is at with the DPE program.
Yeah, so the DPE program is now nationwide. That's the big thing, is that FSDOs don't control the local DPEs. I have a FAA representative that's basically my boss that I go to for interactions, but I can go nationwide. I can actually go worldwide as a DPE and serve American citizens wherever they happen to be.
So, and you said you're actually going to be taking a trip soon.
I am. I'm going to Alaska. There's a pretty cool place called Kingdom Air Corps that teaches, basically it's a missionary pilot organization that teaches pilots how to fly that are going to the mission field. And so I'm going up there to give some check rides. And it's kind of my way, a little way of giving back. And so I'm going up to Kingdom Air Corps, and I think I'm giving 7 check rides over 4 days or 5 days.
That's incredible.
I'm going to have a great time.
But Alaska has its own set of rules. Do you have to have any kind of special training to be able to give check rides in Alaska?
No, every DPE can operate worldwide now.
Oh, wow.
Besides, you should know, Joe knows everything.
Right. He does. I mean, I've been on a check ride.
No, it's actually a great thing. What it means is that you can bring in, if you know a DPE from afar, you can bring him in if you need a DPE. In this case, I'm going to Alaska. You could have never dreamt of that a year ago, and today it opens up opportunities.
All right. So what are some of the pain points associated with this new DMS system?
Yeah, so the DMS, Designee Management System, is the system that we as DPs have to deal with. It used to be I send an email to my POI, the guy with the FAA, and I'm giving this check ride on this day, and it was done. You can't do that anymore. Now you have to go into DMS. DMS requires that I submit a lot of data to be able to set up this check ride. And of course, I need a lot of data to be able to set it up. And so I can't just say, yeah, I'll do it. I have to go into a system. Of course, it's run by the federal government, which means it doesn't run really well. And so there's a pain point there that I have to deal with, which means you have to deal with it.
It's harder for you now.
It's, I wouldn't say harder. Yeah, it is harder. It is. Yeah, it's harder. It's harder for me to deal with. Yes, which means that you have to give me all the data to be able to deal with it, and you have to do it 24 hours in advance, or it's not going to happen.
So why is the FAA requiring this?
They want to watch me, and it's a designee management system. The idea behind it is the FAA needs the ability to just show up and unannounced monitoring me giving a check ride.
Oh, okay. So when you go to a check ride now, the FAA might send somebody there to check ride the check rider.
You bet.
Yeah, DPE is being DPE'd.
Yeah, that's right, exactly. And it does happen. They show up and want to see what I'm doing, and I have to tell them what type of airplane and where the address I'm going to be at and what time we're starting, all these different things. I need the FTN for the student that's giving. I need all this data to input it, and if there's a pain point in you getting me that data on time to be able to do it, then the check ride just simply doesn't happen.
So if we wake up, let's say that we have a check ride tomorrow morning, and we get up in the morning and it's like low IFR, so it's not going to happen.
Right.
Can we reschedule it for later that day?
Yeah, you can just have it happen later in that day. Once it's in the system with DMS, and DMS will send me an approval to administer that check ride. If it goes later in the day, I'll just need to update the time and let the FAA know what I'm doing.
Even if it's on a weekend?
Anytime.
Okay, great.
Anytime.
But if, for example, we had to cancel our check ride, and now all of a sudden we both got an opening later this afternoon, you can't just go in there and say, yes, let's do it.
If it's the same day, I can postpone it till later in the day due to weather or due to aircraft availability, or there's all
Right.
kind of things.
But we
that
just can't schedule it. Like, let's say it was like, oh yeah, let's go do our check ride. Not that anybody would ever want to
Right.
do that. But
Right,
What kind of
exactly.
check rides have you been taking?
no, not like
You'd be surprised. Weather and maintenance and all these things.
Right.
Oh man, it can
Mess everything up.
mess a schedule up completely.
So, oh,
Well, I was going to say, what are some of the pain points right now for pilots out there who need to get check rides done?
Well, there's a high demand.
Okay.
There's
And
just-
not enough DPEs
DPE shortage.
You could say that. I mean,
because
I
they're
don't.
throwing more work at them.
I don't know the numbers, but I just know my phone rings, every day, probably 3 to 5 times I get a phone.
day?
A day that I get a request for a check ride.
Okay.
Which means I'm telling a lot of people no.
So that's a good question. What are some of the do's and don'ts when calling a DPE to schedule a check ride?
Well, be friendly, number one, because, but I'll tell you one of the pain points or not pain point, one of the things that's a pretty quick turnoff is if I get a random text. Texting,
random text?
A random text. It's great for us to be able to talk and to have a short communication, but to give me some long book text requesting everything is because when I read a text, I may be either in flight or driving down the road or whatever the case, and I read it and it goes away and that's it. And all of a sudden, they thought they made a good connection. That's not a good
Yeah,
connection.
that Joe Casey doesn't get back to me.
I need a phone call or an email, something that I can follow up on. And really, an email is the best way to go. And if you email me, then one of the first things I'm going to do is send you to my website where I have a laundry list of questions that I need to be able to schedule that check ride. If you don't get to that place where you get to my website and input that data, you're simply not going to be on the schedule. So, and other DPs are the same way, where you need to communicate well.
I remember when I did my first check ride, it was only 4 years ago, and we had weather, and it scrubbed the check ride. The earliest I could get in was 2 months later with the same guy.
Right.
And the school that I was at only used one guy.
Right.
And it got into the summer, and he would only do mornings anyway, wouldn't do the afternoons. Where are we at right now with scheduling? I know that we've got a shortage of DPEs, but what's kind of an average waiting time for somebody who wants to try to get in?
Well, there's a lot of DPEs that are only DPEs and all they do is schedule check rides, and
Right.
that's great.
And that's not you.
And that's not me. So they may have a different way of doing business than I do, but I fly other flights, I have training flights, I book up very far in advance. So the chances of right now I'm booking into November.
Wow.
And so, there's people that haven't even begun their flight training and they're wanting to schedule the check ride in November.
Wow.
I don't do that. And so if it's more than 3 weeks out, then I'm just simply not going to do it, and you're going to have to find a hole in my schedule. So it's very, very difficult. And where
So you don't do things more than 3 or 4 weeks
no,
out?
because it doesn't happen. If you tell me I need a check ride in November, then are you ready for that check ride? It just works out very poorly to schedule that far out in advance for me, because the minute I put that on, that means I'm not doing something else. So I'm one of the guys that is going to be a lot more short term. Yes. So if you're within 2 or 3 weeks of a check ride, give me a call, send me an email. It may be that I can go, oh yeah, there's a hole in my schedule right here. I'll fit you in and make it happen. That works great.
Okay. All right, so that's, in the other video we talked about with you, the big things were, you were seeing a lot of nervousness, people not being prepared was a big thing, and preparation to me is the key to overcoming nervousness.
Right.
What would be the biggest tip right now that you might give to somebody who's about to do the check ride?
You just realize the worst thing that can happen is you don't get your ride that day. People are over nervous a lot. Check ride-itis is a real thing.
Because if I fail, I've failed as a person. There's some kind of
Right.
really big stigma. Okay, so if I fail a check ride, what am I looking at? Do I have to wait like 30 days?
No, and I was going to say, once you're in the system, once you come see me, and let's say you fail a check ride, I'm going to work really, really hard to find that hole in my schedule. That usually means a Saturday, or I really try not to work on Sundays if I can. But if I have somebody that really has shown the initiative to run the gauntlet to be able to take that check ride with me, I'm going to work very hard to do it again. You know, I'll try to, that person will get priority in my scheduling.
Oh, that's good to know, because sometimes I think, I missed, I had to wait 2 months, so now, it's going to be so much longer and that puts that added pressure on.
It is added pressure, but it also does mean don't schedule a check ride flippantly, because this is a real deal. I mean, you schedule a check ride and that day the weather is terrible and you're going to have a hard time rescheduling. So so you don't come to fail. Make sure you come to pass.
You mean people like scheduling it and thinking the weather's going to be bad so they don't prepare?
No, yes, meaning that they're saying, well, let's just go try to, if you want to take the written test and maybe you're making 80s on your practice tests.
Right.
I would say go take the written test, because all I need is a 70 on the written test.
Right.
On your check ride, be really confident that you've run the gauntlet.
You can hit those ACS standards.
That's exactly right, because you don't want to waste that opportunity, because A, it's expensive, and B, getting a repeat ride is going to be hard.
I know one question that pops up actually about that exact topic is, so when taking the written exam, is it true that examiners will actually look at that, and if you got, say, a 72, you marginally passed, the DPE is going to be harder on you?
No, not me. Not me.
Okay.
No, I found no matter of fact, there may even be an inverse correlation there.
So the better you do, the harder you're going to be?
No.
That explains so much.
Yeah. I told you got 30 points too much on that last test.
There are some really, really, really smart people out there that simply don't take written tests well. That's all there is to it. And there's some people that take written tests really, really well and really don't fly the airplane very
Right,
well.
that are oral.
Correct.
Yeah,
If you've got a 72, come don't retake the written test. Come see me. Let's go. If you made a 99, don't think it's going to be a cakewalk ride.
All right, that's good to know. All right, let's open it up to our studio audience, and we've got a real DPE here. Most of you guys are pilots. Shirley, you got some check ride questions, so let's start right here.
Hey, thanks for sharing all this awesome knowledge.
You bet.
Yeah, I'm right on the cusp. It's so tantalizingly close. I'm like 35 hours before I get my private, which is going to be really great. And so I was just, I wanted to know what's something that, like a little mistake that you find a lot of folks do that might not bust a check ride, but frankly might annoy you or might, start that kind of chain of events to not either a busted check ride or one that doesn't go as smoothly as it could.
Texting him for one.
Yeah, no
Show up late. Show up late you got to think today, if I'm setting a day aside to do check rides and I'm doing 3 now, and you've got the 8 a.m. show and you show up at 8:45, let me just tell you, I'm already just gritting teeth, and you know what I'm saying, I'm not happy about things because I'm just thinking of what that's going to do to my day. So show up on time. Get there.
6 a.m.
Yeah, get there early.
Books in hand.
Yeah. Early is early is on time.
Kidding. You think I'm kidding.
Show up with everything that you need to show up with. People that show up and they don't have their ability to go into IACRA and sign in. Well, you have to you have to go into IACRA and sign it. You don't know you're signing, and it takes 25 minutes, 30 minutes for you to figure out where that is. And I'm just sitting there waiting for this to go down, and the whole time I'm not real happy. So get all those little admin things. When all the little admin things go well, and within 3 minutes we're doing the check ride, then it goes much better.
All right, so Joe, let's talk about that real quick, because it's a lot of us, we've gone on to other check rides, we've had lots of other things, and it's hard to remember now what it was like and what we felt when we were student pilots about to get our PPL. The admin stuff, what right now does a student who's about to do their first check ride, what do they need to have done admin-wise?
You need to go with your instructor and make sure that you're actually good at IACRA. I'm not doing a check ride outside of IACRA. You'll hear some DPEs, that will hand write it. I'm not doing it. Most DPs will not touch it with a 10-foot pole. So you've got to some CFIs don't like IACRA
Oh, my.
and will not happening with me. If I find that out, then I will literally cancel the check ride because I simply don't have time to deal with the follow-on that comes through that. So make sure you've done everything you need to do to get through IACRA, where you've recommended, you've signed, you've got the requisite times. All of these things are set up. Make sure you actually look at the FAR and make sure you've got the flight time required. I've had people come to me and they don't have 3 hours of instrument, and I'm sorry, everything's over.
Tab your logbook.
Yep.
With all the go through, that's what I did with mine, is I took all of the requirements out of the FARs and I said, okay, 3 hours of instrument, and I tabbed it. Cross country time, tabbed it. Solo time, tabbed it.
Yep.
So make sure if you have them all tabbed, then if the DPE says, hey, so where's your cross country solo time? Boom, there, done.
Let me give you one more. And this always starts it out well. When you walk into the room, you shake their hand and hand them the money. That sounds crazy, but it breaks, you know there's going to be a place inside here where I've got to ask for the money for the check. And I'm going to ask before, because I'm not going to ask at the end, because if it doesn't go well, that doesn't end up well. But it alleviates a stress point that just kind of says, hey, I know I'm here to get a service, and so pay it early. Just here it is, and here you go, and it just alleviates a pain point that I've got to deal with later.
Organization as well. Or so like to that point, I had everything kind of on the checklist laid out in order. So it was like, here's this. Oh, and by the way, here's your money,
Yes, exactly.
So also, I liked to pay in smaller bills so it looks more.
That
Yeah.
gets you bonus points.
There you go. So if you're, I wanted him to feel the weight of it. Here you go, all in tens, like.
Rolls of quarters.
Not
Bag
quite.
money.
Thank you very much.
Exactly.
All right. Anybody else with a check ride question? We've got a real DPE here.
Real, not fake.
All right. So let's get the microphone here.
So every now and then somebody goes to Checkride and tells me, I hope the FAA doesn't show up, because the assumption is when the FAA is on board, then the Checkride's going to be harder. You can't have as much leeway as you might otherwise have. I'd be curious to hear your perspective on that.
DPs are very by-the-book people anyway. None of us are out there flapping. If a FAA person shows up to watch what I'm doing, I'm very comfortable with it, because I'm doing the same thing in terms of administratively walking through the same steps. So it really doesn't faze me or scare me. We're going through the same stuff. And the FAA is not looking at the student, they're looking at me. And so at how I do it. It's not it is. I've taken check rides where a DP is evaluating me and the FAA is in the same room, and the stress level goes up. There's no doubt about it. The stress level is going up. But from a practical standpoint, don't let it be so. It's not, you don't have a greater potential of failing that ride.
All right. Thank you. Really? So if there is the FAA shows up to my check ride with you, you're not going to be any different than you were without them.
I don't think I would be. I've had this.
I'm thinking I'm screwed.
Let me tell you how to solve that problem. Show up to the check ride with a 2-passenger airplane.
Important tip for all you guys out there.
If you show up for a check ride with a J3 Cub, I promise you're not going to have an
Or
FAA guy
152. There you go. Just bring a 152.
Bring a 152, you're good. Bring a 182, and there's plenty of room.
You got some trouble.
Yeah,
Now they're bringing 2 FAA guys.
Exactly.
Oh, I pulled the seats. All right, another question.
Yeah, so it's been 17 years since I took my private pilot check ride, and they consider it the license to learn. And I learned some stuff from the DPE at that time. Now that I've got some time and some money back, I'm going to get back into flying.
Right.
When you get those more ratings, the instrument, the commercial, the is it still kind of, hey, we're checking your stuff? Is it still a learning time as well during the check ride as it was during the private time? Or is it more focused on the standards and doing this?
Yeah, as an instructor, I've got to, all instructors are CFIs as well. And so it's hard
All
for me.
DPEs.
All
I'm sorry.
DPEs, yeah.
I'm sorry. All DPs are, we got a DPE hat and we got a CFI hat. And I love the CFI hat more than I love the DPE hat. I have a heart of a teacher, so it's hard. It's hard for me not to throw on the CFI hat, but I'm there to give a check ride. So if it turns out that you're not doing well, I'm not going to teach you. In other words, I'm not going to shore up an area that you're not doing well in I'm going to send you back to your CFI to go get that squared away. If I find an area where you're just really doing really well, and I think that I can add on to that, maybe you hit something that I'm passionate about, and I always look for a place that I can add to it. So if you're getting a check ride from me, I always want to have you learn something more, but it's my job is to evaluate.
That's a really, really good way to put it, actually.
Yeah.
So you want to take the candidate maybe to the limit of their knowledge and maybe add to it.
Especially if you hit an area that I think is fun or I think is interesting. If you come see me, you're going to talk about aerodynamics and weather.
Yeah.
And if you're going really, really hard into those, and I think there's a fun thing, or maybe there's a weather situation that day that I think's fun to talk about, well, we're going to talk about that fun stuff. Because I get to, and it's kind of a neat time for me to be able to go a little deeper. And I'll do that. Now, it won't be long. It's not going to be, I'm not going to break out an hour-long discussion about something, but I'll plow a little bit.
But it's
further.
fun. So check rides are fun. Make sure that we got that on record. So your check rides are all fun.
Oh,
Yeah, low
definitely fun.
All right. Well, thank you so much for coming back on the show, Joe. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much. It's great to be here. Y'all do a great job.
And I appreciate all you guys out there for coming and being a part of it and for watching. And as always, please share, subscribe, and we'll see you guys next time in the Hangar.